Do fire away, and delighted to start today's session by inviting Mhairi to speak about crowdfunding. Thank you.
Thanks, Naomi. Yep, I'm just going to share my screen. I've got a small slide presentation. I promise it's not going to be too long. Just get it up. So yeah, my name's Mhairi. I am one of the coaches here at Crowdfunder UK, and in particular I work for Crowdfund Scotland. What Crowdfunder UK is we are an online crowdfunding platform. We started up in 2013. And we have been running now, we've been growing at 100%, over 100% every single year. So that just shows how many more organisations are starting to use crowdfunding as a viable source of funding for their organisation, for whatever it is they are doing. What crowdfunding in a nutshell is, people have an idea or they have something they want to raise money for. They go online and they create their crowdfunding page on our website. They then put it out to as many people as they possibly can, friends, family, people who might be interested in supporting their project. And hopefully these people will come on their page and they will donate. Crowdfunder UK is a rewards-based platform. What that generally means is that people can say, well, if you give us this amount of money, in return we will give you something back. So it just gives another element of that. You can decide not to use rewards if you think people should be passionate enough about the idea, but we generally find that with rewards-based crowdfunding, the average pledge is much higher on a project and the amount of money given. Crowdfund Scotland itself is a part of Crowdfunder UK. We are funded by Leader, so that is to support any kind of rural growth within rural areas of Scotland. So that funding is actually provided by Leader to provide coaches to help people create their project and build their project up to be as effective as possible. And we do have our own section on the website where you can see projects who have been supported by Crowdfund Scotland programme at crowdfunder.co.uk/crowdfund-Scotland. So we offer different types of, well, there are different types of crowdfunding available. And these are all the different types that you can get. So there's donations-based crowdfunding, rewards-based crowdfunding, community shares, lending, and equity. What we tend to deal in is we deal in donations-based, rewards-based, and community shares. Lending crowdfunding would be, for example, if you said, I need £5,000, people come and give you money and you need to pay it back from the crowd. Equity-based, if you were going to give shares of your business out, it would be equity-based. Crowdfunder do not deal with them. There are other websites that do deal with them though. Donations-based, rewards-based, and community shares is what we deal with. So community shares, I'm hoping I'm going to get this right now because I feel that pressure on, would be if somebody was wanting to raise money to buy more of a community asset. So the difference between community shares and equity and why we deal with that is that nobody can own a monopoly in community shares. Everybody gets one vote, whether they have 500 shares or one share. So that's why we deal with that, but we won't deal with equity. Donations-based crowdfunding, for example, if you have a really good idea, something that you think other people would just be passionate about, that could be raising money for a charity, raising money for some kind of community project, you would do donations-based. So that is just saying to people, I hope you love my idea as much as I think my idea is good. Would you be willing to give me some money towards making this happen? So that would be just donations based. Rewards based is what we deal with the most, and that's why the kind of lighter blue is much wider because it just shows the amount more we deal with rewards based. Rewards based would be, for example, I'm going to open a bakery. I always use bakeries as an example just because it's the first thing that comes into my head. Clearly, food, me, that's how it works. So rewards based crowdfunding would be, I'm going to open a bakery. If you give money to my bakery, in return, I will give you a loaf of bread when we open, or a cake when we open, or afternoon tea when we open, something like that. So it is that given back to the local community or to the people who have donated to your crowdfunder. As I said earlier, we tend to find that people pledge more money on a rewards-based crowdfunder than donation-based crowdfunder, which is why we offer it. Now, we do sometimes find that people get quite creative with what rewards they are offering, which tends to be quite exciting and tends to get bigger pledges in for that. So we've had things like, a good example would be names on toilet seats. There was a cafe starting up and they were offering people to get their name written in the toilet seat if they donated £50. And again, it got interest and it got people in, and it was something that otherwise you would probably not be able to get or be involved in. We have obviously the main benefit that people think of when they think of crowdfunding is going and getting some money. That is the first thing. However, we find that with crowdfunding, there are other benefits to it. So it isn't just about the money. The first thing we find is the validation of the project. So we might have somebody who hasn't started the project yet. It is currently just an idea, and it may be a really good idea. And they're thinking, right, I need some money to get it started. But I wonder if people would actually be interested, because starting up a new idea or a new project takes quite a lot of time. So this person might come on, create their crowdfunder, and put the information out to as many people as they possibly can. So all these people then go, actually, that's a really good idea. I'm interested in that. And they pledge on the project. They give money to the project. And so the person themselves then knows, okay, there is an interest for this. I'm going to continue. I'm going to put more time in, more energy in it, and I'm going to continue to make this happen for people. So they know before they've done any more work in their project that other people are interested in what they're doing. The second benefit we find with crowdfunding is awareness. We in Scotland are horrendous at telling people the amazing things we're doing, all the good things we're up to. We almost feel like we're bragging or a bit embarrassed about it. And then we actually go to talk to people and say, are you aware of a crowdfunder? People start saying, we didn't know that you were involved in any of this. We didn't know you did this. So it raises awareness for a project, and quite often it's awareness that people don't realise that they need, or an awareness that they thought maybe had, but they didn't. So that's another benefit that our projects tend to see coming through. The third one we have is advocates. So for example, if I pledged on a crowdfunder, and I've helped to start something, or I've helped to put money towards something or make something really happen, I'm more likely to feel part of that project. So what that might mean is I might go and volunteer if it's something within the community. It means that if it's a business, I might go back and support that business. And not only that, I'll then go on and tell other people I know about the business, about the community group, and I become an advocate for that. I tell people all about that. And the final benefit we have is one of the ones that crowdfunder are incredibly excited about. That is our extra funding. We are one of the few crowdfunding platforms who do offer extra funding. We work with councils, businesses, all different things to offer extra funding to projects. So we call this match funding. So how this works is you go on, you start creating a crowdfunder project. You then say, okay, it comes up a screen and it just says, tell us a bit more about your project. So there's click boxes, you click in the boxes, and if there's any funds that you're eligible for, a little box will pop up and say, you may be eligible for this, we just need a bit more information. You fill out the form and we'll let you know if you are eligible. It is that simple, that straightforward. We are updating our extra funding available all the time. So it is always worth checking on Crowdfunder website to see what extra funds are currently available to you that may be relevant to your project. This is an example of a project, or it's actually one project, but they've ran twice on Crowdfunder, and it was called Cafe Recharge. And what they wanted to do was they wanted to create a pay what you can type cafe. They wanted to build this pay what you can type cafe. And they did that, and they raised £10,972 from the people round about them. So it was absolutely fantastic the first time they ran. They ran in January this year. And unfortunately, as we all know, not long after they ran their crowdfunder and they raised their money, COVID happened and everything kind of got shut down. But they didn't let this stop them. What they then did is they have come back on the website. They are still currently live in funding to raise some more money to help support projects, people who maybe need a bit of food and things like that. So their current crowdfunder, they have they're offering things like if you pay £10, you can give somebody a meal. If you pay this amount, you can give somebody a meal. So, and some food, groceries and things. So it's a really, really nice way to run a rewards-based crowdfunder. Their original one, they also used rewards. So they had some really quite exciting things that they were offering. So it was things like you could sponsor a piece of crockery. You could go in and put your name on a piece of crockery in their cafe. You could get an afternoon tea in their cafe. So there were different things that they did offer. They did get quite creative. It says naming a piece of crockery. How often do you get that in a cafe? And especially a cafe that is doing so much good in the world. So that is Cafe Recharge. That's an example of a really good example, I'd say, of a project who've ran and they have raised their money that they needed to make their idea and their project happen. They are still on the website. You can go onto our website, crowdfunder.co.uk, and actually just type in Cafe Recharge and both these projects should come up so you can have a look if you want. Crowdfunder don't like leaving people on their own. We want projects to be successful. We want to see good happening. So we try to supply as much information for any projects as we possibly can to make sure that they are comfortable and confident in what they're doing. We offer one-to-one coaching. We offer accelerator programs. What our accelerator programs are is that is a Facebook group that you can sign up to, and we have coaches going on every single day for 2 weeks talking about crowdfunding and giving tips and advice on building a crowdfunding project. We offer a wide variety of workshops. Usually our workshops would have been in person. Obviously with COVID at the moment, we have taken them all online. However, with it all being online, it's actually given us a really good scope to expand what workshops we're offering. For example, next week we start our 4-part series, which we call the How To series in Scotland, and that takes people through 4 different elements of crowdfunding. So it's how to create a network map, build your networks, how to choose make rewards. So that is really fantastic and really thorough. We have online guides which are again really thorough, live customer support from our team down in UK, personalised email advice, and our live project analytics for when people are up and running their project. In response to COVID, Crowdfunder truly believe that we're a platform for good. We try and do as much good as we possibly can. So usually with crowdfunding, we are a business, we do charge fees. However, as part of COVID, if a project is raising money in response to COVID-19, maybe that's to help support their business for COVID-19, maybe support the community, for whatever it is, we are offering 100% free crowdfunding. That means we do not take any platform fees from a project, and any card transaction fees that would normally charged Crowdfunder are actually paying them for the projects as well. We want people to be able to raise money to help sustain themselves. So that is currently what we are doing as part of our Pay It Forward campaign, and we hope that we can support as many projects through COVID as we possibly can doing that. This is just a wee quick bit on, I spoke earlier about our extra funding. We do have extra funds from over 50 partners, and this is an example of some of the fund partners within Scotland that we use on a regular basis. We have more, as we have more being added all the time. We've got a couple in the pipeline that we're quite excited about. And that's pretty much very, very quick touching on crowdfunding. You can contact our team at Scotland at crowdfunder.co.uk if you're interested.
Thanks very much, Mhairi. That's great. And And leads really well, I think, into Toby talking more specifically now about community shares. So obviously, if you've got any questions that have come up from that presentation, start posting them in the chat, while obviously listening carefully to what Toby has to say. So I'll hand over now to Toby. Thanks a lot.
Great. Thanks very much. And yeah, hopefully this is very complimentary to what Mhairi's just said. So I hope everybody can see my screen there. This is a very introductory presentation, so just starting off really with what community shares are. As Mhairi mentioned there, they are a form of crowdfunding. It's very similar in practice to crowdfunding, but unlike the sort of rewards crowdfunding that Mhairi spoke about mostly, with community shares, people who put money into the crowdfunder become shareholders and members in the organisation. And the idea is that you then build up a very actively involved community, and people have certain membership rights. They are entitled to vote towards the management committee, to be elected on the management committee. So it's a very flexible form of finance. It can really be used to fund anything that you can make a business case for. And I'll give some examples later just to show you the real variety of projects that we are working with. Oh, that slide's not moving for some reason. So I won't go into the level of technicality that I sometimes would with a presentation, just to keep it quite brief. But if people do have questions later, I'm happy to chat and kind of go into more specifics if you're interested. So these are just some of the key facts about community shares here. One of the first and most important points is that community shares can only be issued by certain types of organisation, so either a community benefit society or a cooperative society. So you would have to set up as one of those specific legal structures to be able to do this. And the reason for that is just that those two types of organisation have certain exemptions from a lot of the regulation that would normally surround share offers, and if you were to issue private shares as a company, it can be quite costly. So like I said in the previous slide, everyone who buys shares becomes a member in the organisation, and they're actively involved in the organisation. And Mhairi kind of touched on this earlier, that it works on a principle of one member, one vote. So whether somebody puts in £10 or £10,000, the idea is that both those people have an equal voice in the organisation, and it's very democratic. The technical name for community shares is withdrawable share capital. So it's a very specific type of capital. And where it differs from private shares is that you can't buy a share and then go and sell it for a profit. The share itself doesn't really change in value, and it's a bit more like having money in a bank account, in that if you bought £100 of shares, you could go back and withdraw £100 from the organisation, from the society, and that share won't change in value. But there could be an annual interest payment. So some societies are able to offer their shareholders a certain level of interest that is capped. It can't be huge kind of get rich scheme interest rates, but we do see sometimes up to 4 or 5% in Scotland, which tends to be better than savings accounts can offer people. So as well as being a great way to raise money in its own right, I think community shares are a really good way of attracting further funding. And Mhairi really touched on this in her presentation. You know, it demonstrates that your community believe in what you're doing. It demonstrates that people want to see your project happen. So I think grant funders look really favourably upon that, and quite often we see community shares making up what we would kind of think of as the last piece of the jigsaw. Quite often it's as low as 5 or 10% of an overall project funding package that comes from community shares, but it's that really important piece that helps them to draw down all the other funds. So I've just got some quick case studies here now, just of some recent projects we've been working with. This first one just closed a couple of weeks ago, and they successfully raised £110,000, which was the maximum that they were issuing in community shares. So they're a community benefit society. They registered the society with help from ourselves, from Community Share Scotland, and our colleagues at DTAS, the Development Trust Association. So this society was sort of set up by a development trust. It's quite closely linked to a development trust, and they were involved in the development work. They also had a Scottish Land Fund grant to help them purchase a Visit Scotland site in Drumnadrocket, which is near Loch Ness. So they've kind of restored the tourist information centre there, and they're going to have a community transport hub and a baggage handling service so that people doing nearby hiking trails can have their bags transported between sites. So it's a really interesting kind of community business that they're managing to set up, that's doing something that is maybe on the fringes of what would be possible as a private business. This next one is one that's actually live at the moment, so if you're interested, you can still buy shares in this one. They're seeking to raise between £40,000 and £60,000, and they'll use that to set up a community enterprise. They're going to be offering training and development courses for local businesses, so things like first aid courses, heavy lifting courses, things like that. And then they'll use all the profits from that to help to alleviate child poverty through things like a school bank of school equipment for school children locally. So in this one, shareholders are offered up to 3% interest. So if you bought £100, you could be making £3 a year on that, which maybe not a huge amount of money, but it's more than a lot of savings accounts might be able to offer. And this investment is also eligible for tax relief. So there's a scheme called Social Investment Tax Relief where you can get up to 30% of your investment back as a tax break. So again, if you put in, say, £1,000, you could potentially get £300 back in tax relief, which makes some of these share offers really quite attractive, especially once you get into higher levels of investment. This one is another one that's live at the moment. Really quite an interesting and innovative model that we're seeing here. A group that are trying to raise up to £650,000 to purchase a property in Edinburgh, and they're working closely with a homelessness charity around Alba. And the property, once they've bought it, will be redeveloped to be able to house 9 homeless people in sort of what they call homes for life, where people have supported living, they kind of have all their needs met, and they don't have to worry about finding somewhere else to move on. It's a home for life for them. So they're really hoping that by using community shares, they can have a sort of sustainable model of funding for this, so that they can move away from being dependent on grants and donations. And despite all that, despite the fact that it is giving them a very sustainable base, they're hoping that they can offer shareholders up to 5% interest on this. So this is a really interesting one for us. We're hoping it might go on to be expanded across Scotland if it's a success. So do go and find out more. We've been posting a lot about it on our social media, if people are interested to learn more about that one. So just final few slides here, just to say a little bit about the support that's available from Community Share Scotland. We are set up with funding from the Scottish Government and from the National Lottery. So everything that we do is fully funded at no cost to the groups who access our support. So we do a lot of events like this. We do a lot of sort of awareness raising and helping people to understand what community shares are. We work closely with our colleagues in the Development Trust to sort of help stimulate demand for community shares and interest in community shares. But really the key part of our programme is hands-on support and guidance for community groups. So we have a team based in Edinburgh, myself and 2 colleagues, who do the sort of early stage support. We would help you to work out if community shares are a sensible option for you, if this is a good route for you. If we both think that it is a viable idea for you to go ahead with a community share offer, we can bring in funded consultancy support, which would help you to develop the sort of specifics of your share offer, looking at your business plan, thinking about your marketing and engagement plan, helping you to register your society and everything like that. We can also offer a grant to help with the cost of promoting a share offer. So that can be things like marketing costs, advertising, the sort of design and print of your documents that need to go out, all that sort of things. And we do work really closely with other organisations in the sector. So we work closely with Social Investment Scotland, with the Plunkett Foundation, who help with community shops and pubs. We've been doing more with Crowdfunder recently, because they have hosted some community share offers, especially the kind of higher value ones have quite often been conducted through Crowdfunder. So we can help to signpost you to all the support that's available. So we kind of encourage people to get in touch as soon as you have an idea. Even if we can't support you right now, we can definitely point you to the people who can, and make sure that you're getting the best support available. So that is the end of my piece. And I think we will have questions at the end, is that right?
Yep. Thank you very much, Toby. So we will do questions at the end, and I've seen there's quite a few coming through already, so you've got a chance to look through those and get the answers prepped, which is brilliant. And delighted now to just bring on our last speaker for today's session, Hekla Goodman from Big Issue Invest. So Hekla, I think you're just going to chat us through really and talk. So again, if people have got any questions as we go through, put them in the chat and we'll come to all of our panelists at the end. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Naomi. And thank you everyone for being here. This is going to be a little bit more long form, I guess you could say, without presentation slides. So essentially at Big Issue Invest, we invest into social enterprises and charities. That is usually through a debt financing vehicle. We can do a bit of equity play if you want funding of over 150,000 to 3 million. So there's 3 different investment vehicles within our business. I sit in early stage investments, and that looks really familiar to you in the form of Power Up Scotland, one of our funds up in Scotland. We also have a lending team and then a fund management team, and that just, it doesn't really mean anything to external people, but it's just based on the fund that we would put you through, or the investment managers that we would put you through, depending on deal size. We invest anywhere from 10,000 to 3 million. We have done 5 million for a housing fund for the Greater London Authority, but we've got about 250 assets under 250 million assets under management, with 250 investments, active investments. In Scotland, we've invested into 22 organizations. 19 of those were from Power Up Scotland, which I'll talk briefly about after this. 1 social investment fund investee of 3 million. You guys may know Homes for Good. And then we have a few past portfolio clients. Right now we've got 4.2 assets under management in Scotland. But let's talk about Power Up Scotland. So that's a pre-seed accelerator program that we run, where we provide expert mentorship, routes to market, and there's a deliverable of a business plan and a financial model for the chance to pitch before our credit panel at an event we call Caterpillar's Cocoon. And you have the chance to pitch for up to £50,000. Now, I think probably one of the good USPs about the program is the mentorship team that we try to partner you up with. Our partners are Scottish Government, Brodie's, Aberdeen Standard Investments, Experian, and Places for People. So that really ticks all of the boxes for what an early stage company would want. Do they need help with their financial planning? Do they need help with marketing? Do they need help with legal structuring and contracts? Everything that you might need, we've got a partner or a few mentors that we could partner you with that would be able to help your organization be on its best foot coming out of the investment program. You might know one of our key investments from Power Up Scotland called Hey Girls. We gave them 50,000 of seed capital to grow their production for their period products, and this is right before they were signing their contracts with Waitrose and Asda. As you may know or may have heard, they do a buy one give one model. So you buy a pack of period products and they give one to some lady in need. Now they've donated more than 10 million period products to date, and I think that's just a testament to our program being flexible, our funding being flexible. We give the funding based on a patient capital loan, so that's the term is for 5 years, and it's at 5%. So there's no repayments the first year. 2 and 3 is a cap or interest repayment, and then 3 to 5 is capital and interest repayments. Now things have been a little bit difficult through lockdown. We closed the second cohort of Power Up Scotland just before lockdown in Scotland, and it was really uncertain if we would be able to do the investment event. Thankfully we were able to, but this just saw us needing to be flexible with our investees. We've got very good relationships with everybody that was put through the program, and a couple of extended that didn't make it through the program. But I think we see the sector being more risk adverse. There's a lot of grant funding out there, COVID contingent grant funding, and from our perspective and our partners' perspective, when we were giving the offers for the investments, was that the organizations should try to find any grant opportunity possible, and this was when TSRF was released. But they should pursue grant opportunity as much as possible before taking on repayable finance. And of course, that is 100% understandable. We want each organization that we invest into to be on their best foot and to be sustainable in the long run. So we've decided to do our funding in tranches. On a needs basis, we have catch-up conversations with each investee and decide how much we can allocate towards their next funding activities. And we have also seen founders starting new organizations who have thrived through lockdown. For example, I was speaking to someone on Tuesday last week who needed funding so that they could increase production for their online printing platform. Now that these are great things to see, and it's good to see people changing their business models, creating online delivery mechanisms so that they can see through these times and that they can be there for their beneficiaries as well. So far as to funding on the horizon, we will be doing another program in March 2020. In person is obviously contingent on the government guidance, but it's looking more like we will do an online program. So perhaps there are a lot of thoughts around that, and if you would like to be involved, you can get in contact with me and I can kind of run you through the process at hekla@bigissueinvest.com, and would be happy to chat to you about potential avenues that you could access before going through a repayable finance option. But yeah, just let me know. And I think I'll hand that back to you, Naomi, for questions.
Thank you very much, Hekla. I was just trying to get my video set up, and I was actually just looking as you were speaking, because I know in Scotland here we have Just Enterprise, which does lots of support as well, and they've got actually a session I think coming up on the 15th of November looking more generally at raising social investment. So I thought it was perhaps worth highlighting, and I'll put a link to that just in the chat if anyone's interested as well in that broader background. So I'll start coming through the questions, and obviously we've got a few that have already come through for I guess a lot around community shares and some of the real details of that. So I'll perhaps come to Toby first, and then if there's any more general ones for Mhairi and Hekla, then please do pop them in the chat. So just to start off on the questions, I'm just scrolling back up my chat. So the first one, I guess, is what's the difference between equity and community shares? And Toby, I'll perhaps just get you to just reiterate what that might be.
Yeah, of course. I mean, really, community shares are a form of equity. I think equity, as we tend to think about it, as shares in private companies, is quite heavily regulated. It can be quite a time-consuming and costly process to put together a private share offer, and the community benefit society model and community shares, as we speak about them, were really set up as a way to give community groups access to that sort of equity without having to go through all the process that a company might have to. It was kind of done to make it cheaper and easier. So community benefit societies are able to issue this particular form of equity, withdrawable share capital, that is free from a lot of the regulation, and it just makes it a lot easier.
Thank you, Toby. And I think we had another question that had just come in to you, which was, can a charity create a cooperative as a subsidiary? So obviously you were talking about how to use the community shares model, you have to be a community benefit society or a co-op. So I think it's just that question on legal structures.
Yeah, and I think that ties into Katrina's question as well, which is, can SKIOs issue community shares? And the answer to that is no. A SKIO can't issue community shares. You have to be a community benefit society. But you do have, if you're an existing organisation, whether that be a SKIO or a company or anything, you really have two options. You can either set up a community benefit society to sit alongside the existing charity, and there are ways that you can create formal links between the two. So I think I mentioned previously that Common Ground Against Homelessness have been set up by a charity, Rowan Alba, and they've been set up in such a way that Rowan Alba can retain some influence over Common Ground. They have certain veto rights over any changes to the rules of the society, and they have agreements that they can share board members and things like that. So you can't have a complete subsidiary where the existing charity has complete control over the society, but you can have links between them where there's a strong relationship. The other option is that you can just, especially with a company, it's quite easy to just convert to become a society. So you could just convert your company to become a society in its own right. That's a little bit more complicated with a SKIO, because with a SKIO you would have to essentially dissolve the SKIO and pass the assets on. It is possible, but it's more complicated. So there's different options.
Thank you, Toby. And obviously you touched on the fact that people can get support. So if people did want to do that, is that something they could come to the support programme for help with?
Yeah, from ourselves and also from Cooperatives Development Scotland, which is a wing of Scottish Enterprise. So we work quite closely with them, and between the two of us we can definitely help you to work out what's best for your organisation. Thank
you. It's like a dig deep into legal structures for social enterprise, which is a whole other webinar in itself, I think, sometimes. But it's important to understand some of those legal structures in line with the community shares model. So I'm just coming back. There's a question I think coming for you, Mhairi, which I'm just getting to. Scrolling through, which was in terms of the platform fees for crowdfunding, can you just perhaps remind people what they are? Kind of, I think you said there's a special COVID kind of price at the moment, but also what is the price in a non-COVID situation?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't even think I mentioned that. I was just so excited because we've got our special COVID deal. We do have our fees are 3% for a rewards-based thing. Crowdfunder, sorry, my brain's broke. For a rewards-based crowdfunder, it is 3% plus VAT, and then our card provider takes 1.67% plus VAT plus 25p per pledge. So we tend to say to project owners to actually add on about another 5 to 6% of what they're looking to raise, just to make sure they're covering those fees. If you don't raise the money that you are looking to raise, however, we don't take, if you don't raise any money, we don't take any fees. So the fees are based on what you've actually raised as opposed to anything else. If you are doing donations only, however, there are certain circumstances, again, which are fee-free. So there's a number of things, new businesses as well, currently are fee-free. It is all on the website. It is a bit of, depends what you're doing, if it's a bit of one of those answers. But in general, it would be 3% plus VAT plus the card provider fees as well.
Thank you, Mhairi. That was helpful. And if you didn't manage to catch all of that and write it down, then we do share the recordings of the webinars after, so people can always go back and write that down. But I think I got it. It's funny. Someone commented as well that they loved the sentence that you said, "My brain's broke," and they're going to use that. So I think we'll all be using that. We've certainly all felt it, I think, over the last few months at various times. So thank you for that. Hekla, I think someone was just asking about details for a programme in terms of when that information might come available. So I think you've responded in chat, but do you just want to kind of remind people when and how to get hold of information on that?
Yeah, of course. I'll put my email in the chat. You can email me, or alternatively, you can complete an investment inquiry on our website. We don't have a landing page for the new program at the moment, but if you do go to our website, we do have a Power Up Scotland page where it sends you to an inquiry line as well. Happy, like I said, happy to have a chat with you, go through your business model. If you need some type of support now, we can contact our mentors still. So just let me know your needs, basically. Also on crowdfunding, pay it forward, a tidbit. We have a couple of investees that are able to access match funding for that. So that might be an opportunity to look into up in Scotland as well.
Thank you, Hekla. That's great. And I think I have now put a link in the chat to the just general session that Just Enterprise run on looking at raising investment or social investment, which is often that kind of loan element. And I'm very biased because I sometimes run some of those sessions with Toby, which is why I'm often familiar. We're a bit of a double act on those at times, aren't we, Toby? But
we do have one next Thursday, actually. Thursday the 5th of November is the next one.
Thank you. And it's just worth understanding that, because obviously loan finance is something that a number of organisations have used in their business, and it's worth understanding when it's suitable, but equally when it may not be. And I think those sessions very much talk you through all of those kind of basics, and also give you indications. Obviously, Big Issue Invest have done a lot of work here in Scotland, and there are other people that do that as well. So it's always worth looking at kind of that landscape of who's around. So worth picking up on some of that, I think. I can see 3 new messages come in, so there's lots of comment, which is great. Some of it questions, useful bits of resources. I was also going to perhaps highlight that, again, albeit they're sessions that I know Social Investment Scotland have run, and you do have to put up with my dulcet brummy tones on them. They do talk very much about investment and use case studies from across Scotland, looking at, you know, whether it's investment for buildings or raising investment for retail projects, but a real variety. And all of those are recorded webinars on the CIS website. And I think, you know, very much the social investment scene all works together. So it's worth understanding who different people are. I'm just going to perhaps pick up on a comment, and it was great, I have to say, Toby, to see Loch Ness Hub in your slideshow, because I think in fact one of the last sessions we ran together, they were just launching that. Yeah. So it's brilliant to almost get the live update myself on where it went.
It was really good for us because we were a little bit, I think everybody was a little bit unsure about how things would go kind of post lockdown, whether people would have money to invest in things, whether people would still be willing to put money in, and they absolutely smashed their target. Like they got their maximum before the closing date, so it was a really big success.
Yeah, perhaps that leads into an interesting question from Mhairi, because again, I know on the Social Enterprise Scotland bulletin that goes out every week, we've been trying to promote some of the crowdfunding kind of initiatives that are happening in our sector. And have you found that more people have turned to crowdfunding during COVID, Mhairi, or are people really looking at it? And has there been that sense of kind of interest increasing or decreasing from kind of communities and investors?
We have obviously seen a lot of people coming for loads and loads of different reasons to Crowdfunder at the moment. People that have maybe struggling, or see other people in their community struggling, businesses that have been struggling, or even people who have maybe lost their jobs due to COVID. and are actually decided they're going to start their own kind of little business. We've seen that as well. So we've seen so much interest, and it's actually been quite nice from a coaching perspective because the variety has been incredible in what we've seen. We did work, one of the ones that we did work for recently as well was Mhairi Loch, which some people might know about. And they raised money to help support themselves through COVID. So just such a variety and the interest, but even from people coming onto the site. So one of our concerns as crowdfunder was that people aren't going to have money to put into projects, and that was a huge concern for us. However, we've actually found that people have been they've been caring about other people locally and within their community. We've actually seen people pretty much open their hearts if they can afford it and open their wallets if they can afford it, whereas before maybe they were looking more to who they are, whereas now people are actually looking out for each other. So it's been really, really nice from that perspective, and it does the heart good. As a coach, seeing all these kind of things happen, it really does the heart good, and it makes you really excited coming into work almost.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think it's been interesting. I think as we've seen, you know, people look at kind of how they spend money. I know we're about to launch things like Buy Social Scotland here in terms of encouraging people to buy from social enterprise, but there's a Scotland Loves Local campaign that's happening at the moment. And I think, you know, while I think we'd all have preferred that we weren't in the current situation we're in, there are some positives that we're hopeful that we can all hold on to as we come out of this. So I guess on a similar theme, Hekla, I mean, we've seen some businesses grow, I guess, during the COVID situation. Have you found that there's still been demand in terms of looking at that investment money from the big issue perspective?
Yeah, definitely. We've actually, touching on the point that you guys were just discussing, we've had 3 food delivery companies on the program, and we had a conversation in the beginning of lockdown. How do we work together? How can we get local authority money? And through that, we've nothing to do with me, just having conversations. But they've been able to deliver over 150,000 hot meals to over 3,400 people. Goodness. So it's just amazing what the community can do. It's amazing what people with good ideas or just a helping hand can do. In terms of loan financing, yeah, people have been contacting me because, like you said, people are having inspiration or new ideas on how they can be more entrenched in their community and how they can be that delivery model. So it has been interesting to see the types of things that are happening. I would say a lot more is online. And people getting creative with what they can deliver in terms of workshops, for example, DJing workshops from one of our last cohort. So it's just how do we keep encouraging that creativity, and how do we keep funding it? And I think all of our funders are willing to be flexible. They like these new ideas because they are helping people who are sitting in their homes all day. So it's a good thing to do and a good thing to get behind.
Yeah, it's a funny time, isn't it? Just seeing that balance of some organisations, you know, still really challenged actually out there and really struggling, and some, like I say, in that situation when they're growing or they're suddenly finding there's a new community need or demand that's quite. It's a strange place, I think, in terms of raising money at the moment. I want to kind of just finish just by asking you all if you've got a top tip in terms of, obviously regardless of whether it's crowdfunding or coming in for social investment, what is the top tip that you would give organisations looking into that field as to the piece of research or prep that they ought to do if they're looking to go down that route? And I'll perhaps start given you're on screen, Hekla. Have you got a top tip? If someone was looking at social investment, what do they really need to focus on, and what do they need to think about in terms of looking at their organisation?
For us, it's always a case of looking at your accounts. I think the financial statements say everything about a business, and if you're too early stage to do that, then have a really good plan from dot, like when you started your company, for the future, at least 2 years. I mean, every financial forecast that we look at right now is so uncertain, but what we are looking at is, was the company in a good position before a lockdown? For some organizations, it might look different. It might look like they were relying heavily on local authority contracts, or they were relying heavily on corporate contracts, and those have kind of fallen by the wayside. But I think it's helpful to be as honest and upfront as possible. As an investment manager, you have to go before a credit panel and get everything approved. And I think the buy-in is one, we're investing into people. So if you can keep that the main thing, then I think we can try to find flexibility in terms of repayment holidays or extending terms longer so that the loans are affordable. We've not taken any repayments from our Scottish investees that weren't able to pay. So I think it's just have that conversation with your investment manager and see what is possible.
Thank you, that's really helpful. And I'm going to come to you next, Mhairi, if I may. The top tip if people were looking at crowdfunding.
Yeah, well, our usual top tips are always look at your network, speak to people, and really connect with as many people as possible. One of the things, as I said before in my presentation, is that we don't tell people what we're up to. And actually, that's probably the biggest thing I can see with Crowdfunder is telling people what you're up to, know who's in those networks, and actually making new connections. Because just now, no matter what, whether you're making new connections is always a good thing, and it's always good to actually be meeting new people, even though it's probably mainly virtually, or however it is. It's actually really good just in general to be meeting people, making connections, and it really helps to get all these basically pledgers on board. So that's probably the best thing that we tell all projects, is to know who your network are, and if there's people who could be in your network that you think would be beneficial, reach out to them and speak to them. People are just a phone call away, and people are generally, I don't know if everybody else is finding this, people are happier to talk at the moment than they usually would be because they're not running anywhere else. So people are generally very, very happy to chat to anyone at the moment.
Yeah, no, it's funny, isn't it? We're all talking online, but actually it's made some of our opportunities to connect easier. Some obviously more difficult, but in terms of reaching out beyond your usual networks, it's quite an interesting way of doing it. So, and Toby, top tips?
Yeah, I would say we're really lucky in Scotland that there's a huge amount of support available and a lot of funded free support available. So the best thing I would say groups can do is, as soon as you have an idea, speak to one of the programs that are out there, see what they think, get specific advice on your actual project, because I guarantee that myself, other people involved in this sector, if they can't help you themselves, they'll be able to point you to someone who can. So ask early, because you will get good advice.
Absolutely. I think we are blessed with a strong ecosystem of support here. And again, I'd always say, if you're not sure who to approach, you could ask Social Enterprise Scotland and we can signpost you. But within the ecosystem, even if you just know one organisation, whether that's First Port, the Academy, Just Enterprise, DTAS, one organisation would send you to the right organisation if you're not right for them. We all know each other and we all work together. So, go to who you know, I guess, as well, and ask away. So there's plenty of support out there. So